Okay, let's go!
He wants to jump
1,000 cars. Sir, you have 1,000 cars.
I don't think I'd attempt to try this stunt.
Or we owe this horsepower to Uncle Sam.
Too many cars.
Car. Roses would be...
Like I put my beer belly on it.
If you can't immediately tell somebody how many cars you have.
You'll really give those uppity yuppies something to think about.
Stay on the bar. Don't go off the bar with your Bronco.
1980 Volvo horns, what's right? I want a man's coolant.
And he's like, oh, I thought it'd be small. It's for a small car. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still an automatic transmission. They're never going to be light.
It's definitely going to have to crash.
Starting off with Brad buying another car.
That's the West. Internet.
Is this a Nigerian oil print?
I also wish you drove a tan Camry.
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's a
horrible,
very
horrible podcast content.
very
Talking about a picture.
inside joke.
They'd love to be driven hard.
Welcome to this week's episode of Auto Off Topic. Hello, Brad.
Evening, Andrew.
We don't have a little delay, do we? I hope not.
We might. I don't know, but hopefully it'll get fixed in post, as they say.
All right. Cool. So, I don't know. We got a little car news. I read today that Advanced is closing a bunch of stores. Advanced Auto Parts. Said you didn't see that yet.
No, I had no idea. That's. I wish it was AutoZone, but it is what it is.
I mean, I don't know who.
That's gonna leave us with O'Reilly's, AutoZone, and Napa. Really, everything else is because Pep Boys doesn't do parts anymore. If Advanced is gone,
Yeah, that's.
Advanced was better.
It's
than
really
AutoZone.
Yeah, it's really weird that Pep Boys doesn't do parts at all anymore.
The guy yelled at me that one time. I was pretty mad about that.
I bet
I called
not a
Pep
lot
Boys
of
looking for
Advanced.
parts, and I called Pep Boys once looking for parts, and they were very angry and sarcastic with me that I didn't know they didn't sell parts anymore. So,
Yeah, that's
Mad
weird
about it.
because they didn't really announce it. I feel like they just did it.
oh, that was back when I had the Saab. I was looking for something, and I called them, and they went through all the effort of looking the part up, and I was like, "All right, cool, I'll come get it." And they're like, "Oh, we don't sell it." I was like, "What do you mean you don't sell it? What are we talking about here? Oh, you can come get it installed." I was like, "No." He's like, "We haven't sold parts in months," and I was like, "Well, this is news to me." And he's just all mad at me, and I was like, "Okay, whatever."
I don't remember them ever announcing it ever. I think you told
No,
me. they
absolutely
were.
not.
Yeah, it was like a weird thing. They just stopped selling parts. But I bet where you are, mostly those stores won't close because you have a lot of people there. It's a busy area, but it's probably like
I mean, we'll
underperforming
see.
stores or
It's-
something.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, I generally go to O'Reilly's anyway because there's two of them within like the same distance of my house of each other. So if one doesn't have it, the other one does. And I generally find O'Reilly's to have a better selection of parts, and they're faster to get you things they don't have. I find, and I have a Napa pretty close by too, but Napa is so expensive; it's not even worth my time.
Yeah, Napas are weird because they're independent, so they can be different prices. But what was the 24-hour one? Was that an Advanced?
That was Advanced. Yep.
Oh, okay. That was kind of weird, but useful there, I guess.
It wasn't quite 24 hours. It closes at like 3 a.m. and opens up again at 7.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's we've discussed this before. Like I am pretty good about pre-buying everything online. I rarely go to stores. It's like if I want car wash stuff.
So it's your fault that Advance is closing.
I guess it is, but mostly because it's just annoying to go to the store.
Well, the problem is, and this is the problem with a lot of, I don't want to get into a deep conversation about corporations in society, but, they don't pay their employees very well. So you don't always get the best employees. And then somebody who goes in there knowing what they want to buy is going to be annoyed because they have to argue with the person about what they're trying to buy. Like when I was trying to buy Mercor parts, and all they could find me was parts for a GMC, and it just turns you off to going to the store. And in a world of convenience where I can go online and order the part, as much as I don't like to, not support the local store, it's just easier, and they've done it to themselves. There's a reason that Home Depot is successful, because they treat their employees well, right? And all these auto parts stores don't. But maybe Napa is more expensive because their employees are maybe a little bit more knowledgeable in the field sometimes. But the Napa here, at least, is just so overpriced, it's not even worth talking to them. So they wanted $8 for a copper crush washer. Like, there's no world in which a copper crush washer is $8. So
Yeah, because it's like the size of a penny. So is it 800 of them?
that's what I mean. Like, all right, fine. It's worth more than a penny because you had to machine it to the right size and drill a hole in the middle of it, but it's still not worth $8. So when he brought out the thing and he's like $8, he had the like thing of crush washers. I thought I was buying like a whole package of crush washers, and he pulled out the individual ones. And I needed I was replacing fuel lines in something, and I needed, I think, the Starion, and I needed, I think, 4 of them, and it was like $32 for 4 crush washers, and I was like, nope, I'm actually good. I will order them online and wait 2 more days. Like, I don't care that much. So, but that's just one of many things that I've had that same experience with at that particular store. So I just don't go there unless I'm in like absolute dire straits for something.
Well, they're all independently owned. Like, we don't go to the one in Salem because the guy's super grumpy and not like, am I bothering you by coming to your store to buy stuff? So the one here in my town, those guys are super nice. I always go over there.
But it's so awkward to get to that one because it's like underneath the on-ramp to the highway.
I mean, it's not far from my house, though. It's not that hard to get to for me.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, speaking of getting parts for stuff, I think you had some parts you didn't think you had, and you've got some updates on your truck.
I do. I did. So I think last week I was talking about trying to rebuild the stock carburetor because I didn't want to order the parts for the Weber because I didn't want to spend any money to find out the motor was no good.
Right.
Well, turns out that I had already ordered the parts for the Weber, so I was able to put the Weber on the car. So basically,
I don't think we covered your compression check. You talked about it in the Discord. Again, another reason to join the Discord. You learn stuff about project cars ahead of time.
That's true. We did not, because that all happened this weekend. So I did a compression test on the vehicle. I will say that number 2, number 3 made 160 plus on the gauge.
That's a
so
good.
that's good.
That's
That's a good
healthy.
number. Number 4 made a little over 100. Like, I think it was like 120, which is a little less healthy, but still not like concerning too much yet for an older car that's been sitting for a long time. But number 1, which was the first one I tested, which almost made me stop testing the rest of them, made 60 pounds. And I was like, that's not a good number. So I was a little discouraged, but I tested the rest and they came out good.
Better than 0.
Better than 0, that's for sure. So it's not as bad as the Volvo. So we kind of all had a little roundtable discussion on the Discord, or as Naomi has taken to calling it, the hive mind. We had a hive mind conversation in the Discord, and everybody's like, you know what? The truck's been sitting for 20 years. The fact that it made some compression and the motor is free means you're probably okay. Maybe the rings are just hung up and stuck, or maybe one of the valve is got some varnish on it. It's a little sticky, or maybe something just needs to be warmed up and heat cycled and something will be okay. So that conversation encouraged me a little bit. And then I talked to the son of the previous owner, and he reported back that, and he has no reason to lie to me because he knows I wouldn't be mad if it needed a motor. That was the conversation when I bought the truck. That when it was parked, didn't smoke at all. It didn't run funny. Everything worked perfectly fine. So the theory being that hopefully things will just unstick and free up. So I kind of stopped working on it that night because I was a little bit frustrated. but I did pour some more Marvel Mystery Oil down the cylinders just to, let it soak another day. Went out with the next day and said, you know what, I'll put this thing together and we'll make it work. So I went out the next day and I was going to try to work on that factory carburetor. And then I noticed a package that was unfamiliar to me and didn't remember what it was. And I opened it up and it was the adapter plate for the carburetor. So
Thanks,
apparently
past
I ordered
Brad.
it. Yes, exactly. Thanks. Yes, past Brad, exactly. So, what did you say? Discord ADHD win.
Yeah.
So I must have ordered it back when I bought the carburetor from the junkyard, because when I was at the junkyard. So let me kind of describe how these adapter plates work. So a Weber carburetor, a standard 3236 downdraft Weber, is a universal fit part. The way it's a universal fit is they sell adapter plates. So it's a double stack of like half-inch thick aluminum pieces. The bottom one is shaped to your car's manifold. So I have the standard Mitsubishi one. And then the bolt pattern on that bolts to a standard Weber universal adapter for the base plate on 3236 downdraft carb, which then has the bolt pattern for the carburetor on it. So it's like a double stack of plates that go underneath the carburetor to convert it from your factory bolt pattern for your factory carb, which in this case is a Mikuni, to the Weber style, 4-bolt rectangle platform. So they're held on with these machine screws that have a star style bit on them. Not Allen. What's the other word I'm looking for?
Torx?
Torx. Thank you. They have a Torx bit or a Torx fitting to put your Torx driver in. And I knew that when I was going to the junkyard to buy the used carb off the truck. But the Torx bit I have doesn't have much of a handle on it. And I was able to get the first adapter plate off, the one that goes from the carburetor to the adapter. But I couldn't free up the lower adapter plate in the junkyard. So I can get the carb off because the carb is held on with 12 millimeter bolts to that top adapter plate, and I can get that top adapter plate off, but I couldn't get the lower one off of the factory manifold of the truck that was in the junkyard. So I knew I was going to need to buy that lower plate, and you can buy the adapter kit for like $60. So that's good. So apparently I bought it at some point, and it's a kit that comes with those 2 plates and the 3 gaskets required to make that work, and all the hardware. So it comes with the 4 machine screws for the bottom, the 4 machine screws to put the adapter plate on the adapter plate, and then it comes with the studs to put in the top adapter plate, and then the bolts to hold the carb on as well. So it's a complete kit, which is cool. So I had all that here, apparently, and I was able to put the Weber carb on the car, because even after soaking that factory carburetor in all kinds of solvents, I could not make that butterfly open at the bottom to save my life. I think the only way to do it is to just sit it in like a bath of something. But at this point, I'm not even going to bother. It looks like the material of the butterfly and the material of the carburetor have kind of fused into one block of something. Now it's curious because there's no rust on this truck anywhere. There's no rust inside the engine.
That's rodent pee.
I think it's 100% filled with rodent urine that has turned into that, because the actual intake manifold was full of brown, nasty liquid. Yeah, it was gross. It was absolutely disgusting. Now, some of that is going to be solvent and stuff that I sprayed down the carburetor, but I certainly didn't spray like the intake full of it when I did it. So it's full of something else. And the air cleaner was on the vehicle, so it was not water from rain with the hood open at some point. It was definitely must be. I can't think of what else it is. So the only other thing it could have been was coolant coming from a coolant passage leaking into it, but that doesn't seem to be an issue either. So it's not that. So anyway, I used paper towels and cleaned it out the best I could, like just soaked it up. Had, gloves and a full hazmat suit on pretty much. Soaked it all up with paper towels, got it out of there. There was definitely some fuel smell to it too, but which also makes sense because I was trying to start it with starting fluid and fuel. So took the Weber carb, put it on the car, went to put the spark plugs back in, and I said, tap my temple on the side of my head and said, wait a minute, Brad. These pistons are full of Marvel Mystery Oil. I should crank it over without the spark plugs in it just to clear that out so I don't, hydro lock it with Marvel.
Yep.
So I did that. I made one error in calculation.
Okay.
At how much velocity the Marvel Mystery Oil comes out of those spark bubbles at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, should throw a little paper towel in there.
I should have covered it. I did not cover it. I put a good amount in there. I'd say probably 2 or 3 capfuls.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 or 3 capfuls looks like gallons when it sprays out the side of the motor. So I had to quickly get the special ceramic coating safe detail spray because I covered the side of the Maverick in Marvel Mystery Oil.
Whoops.
Oops. Yeah, big whoops. And it was, wouldn't you know it, just as Naomi was coming outside to see how I was doing, and I was standing next to her car wiping the Marvel Mystery Oil off the side. And she's like, is that? I was like, it's not caustic. Don't worry. It's literally just oil. So it'll be fine. But I have to get it off because I want to get it off. So I felt really bad.
Got a squirter.
Yeah, for sure. It was a mess. And it was all over the driveway. Oh, it made a disaster. So that was, I knew better too. Like at least I remembered to pump it out before I tried to start the truck. But I also forgot to cover the holes with something. So all the engine bay that I cleaned is just covered in dots of oil now too. So I'll get back to that eventually, but it's more important to try to make it run. So anyway, I listen, there was no more Marvel Mystery Oil in the engine. It went everywhere. The truck did clean, so that's fine. What happened next? Spark plugs in. I had to buy new plug wires.
Yeah.
Because the plug wires that were on there were like fused to the spark plugs. And when I was pulling them off, the plug wire pulled out of the boot. And I was like, that's no big deal. I can just put them back together. But when I tried to pull the boots off, they were glued to the spark plugs and they just came off in pieces. So I had to buy new spark plugs. New spark plug wires. So I went to O'Reilly's online and I ordered spark plugs and spark plug wires at like 9 in the morning, and I had the deliver to store option. They had them by 2, so that was good. It was a whopping, I think, $54 for 4 plugs and a set of wires, so not a big deal at all. And I went with obviously NGK BPR 6 ES11s, which are the standard Mitsubishi plug, and whatever their import auto wires are. Nothing fancy, just spark plug wires. So that all came in about 2 o'clock. I used that time in between, I think, hour and a half or so to fiddle with the carburetor a little bit, got the carburetor installed in the truck. I still don't have the linkage set up properly because I didn't want to set it up until I knew I was using it, because in order to use that carb, I have to cut the stock cable. And I didn't want to cut the stock cable and then not wind up using that carb. So there's no linkage hooked up yet, but that's this weekend's project. Because once the plugs and wires were on and I put a little bit of fuel in the carburetor, it fired up.
Nice.
Almost instantaneously. It was like the truck was parked yesterday. It was pretty wild how quickly it fired up. So I couldn't get the fuel pump to prime. It has a mechanical fuel pump in the side of the cylinder head, same as the one in the Sapporo, similar to the one that would have been in the yellow Colt. So I couldn't get that to prime. I was trying to figure out how to make it prime, and everything I read online was just pour some gas in the carburetor, fill up the float bowl, and once it's run for 4 or 5 seconds, it should be enough to prime the fuel pump. So I was not running it from the fuel tank because I don't know what the condition of my fuel tank is, because it has
No.
fuel. It has fuel in it, and it has been sitting for 20 years plus. So I disconnected all of the feed lines, and I ran a line from the fuel pump into a jerry can of fuel, and I had a return line that was just running back to that. Actually, I had the return line running into actually, I was trying to figure out which was the return line and which was the feed line, and I got that all screwed up, and I squirted gas everywhere too. But that's beside the point. Once I figured that out, I put the return line into like just a water bottle and had the other line. So I had a little circle of fuel going so I could see what was happening and making sure everything was working as intended. And it was. Once that thing fired up with that fuel line in there and it, revved to 1,000 RPM for a second or two, the fuel pump was pumping a ton of fuel. So it would drain out the little water bottle of fuel when I was using that for the feed at first in, not very long at all, and then dump it back in the return system. So it's interesting. I've never played too much with a carburetor on a more modern vehicle. A lot of the early stuff doesn't have a return line in a carburetor.
Yeah.
So this thing pumps a lot of volume. I was surprised how much it pumps. So I may have to look in to see what kind of pressure this thing does pump at, because the Webers are only intended to run at like 2.8 psi. So I may have to do an inline regulator. What we'll see. But nonetheless, I ran it long enough to hear it, to get a couple revs out of it, make sure it revved up smooth. Everything, the thing runs very nicely. It makes a little bit of noise in the top end, but I would expect that because I'm pretty sure it has hydraulic lifters. I know that it's kind of the changeover years. It may or it may not, but I think it has hydraulic lifters. And the hydraulic lifters are obviously empty for 20 years of sitting out somewhere. So I expected a little top end noise, but it wasn't anything. I mean, you saw the video. It wasn't anything concerning, that's for sure. But yeah, it fired right up. I let it run I'd probably let it run for 20 seconds or so. And I had Naomi was in there working the key, and she shut it off when I asked her to, because I don't have any coolant in it, or the fan's off of it, and I don't want to overheat the thing sitting there, obviously. And also, I got it running on the oil that's been sitting in the crankcase for 20 years. So I want to change that oil before I run it any longer. So I did obviously check it first to make sure it had oil, and the oil didn't seem like it was watery, or I just didn't want to change the oil and then, find out I didn't have a good motor. So I ran it long enough to make sure it ran. It runs. So this weekend's project is now fit the throttle cable, fit the water pump fan back on, and fill the system with coolant and run it for a little bit longer and see how that goes. But huge shout out to Josh Mead from Adventure Driven Design. He's here in the Valley as well, and he also has a first gen Mighty Max and has had a few Mighty Maxes over the years, and knows that I needed some parts. And I went down to his place this week and kind of did some shopping in the Josh Mead parts store, which is also good because the Josh Mead parts store is the most friendly of parts stores. It doesn't actually cost me money to buy parts there. I did buy him dinner, so I didn't steal all his parts. And I left there with parts that I needed. So a hood without dents in the front of it, chewed by coyotes. A tailgate without a giant smash in the middle of it. And a good fuel tank that's clean inside and not rusty.
Oh, there you go.
So I have everything I need now other than tires to make this thing roadworthy. So the plan this weekend is to what I just said with the engine. I want to drop the old fuel tank out of it, and I'm going to take and replace every soft fuel line in the truck, put a new fuel filter in, And before I put the soft lines in, I'm going to run some kind of solvent through all of the hard lines and blow them all out, so that there is zero chance that there's any kind of impurities in the fuel system in this truck at all, because that's the one thing that I'd wind up chasing forever if I didn't do that. So it's the same thing I wound up doing with that 80 Cressida back when I first got that. So it just makes sure that everything is clean in the truck and ready to go. So that's this weekend's plan, and maybe swap that hood on. We'll see. So all depends on how well the rest of it goes. And then if all of that goes well, I'll probably head down to the local Lantera, which is the used tire shops, and just pick up some used round tires that aren't 28 years old like the ones that are on the truck, and maybe take it around the block. So we'll see. That's the hope. The big hope is there's a runner and a driver this weekend.
Did you say it was smoking a little bit when you started up?
It smoked more than I've ever seen anything smoke in my life.
That's
But-
probably the Marvel Mystery Oil.
That's a combination of a couple of things: Marvel Mystery Oil, whatever else was in that intake. I'm sure I'm burning off some mouse urine too, right? But also, when we started it and we gave it a couple of revs, multiple pounds of mouse house came flying out the exhaust pipe. There was just fuzz and fur and pack rat stuff that just came flying out the exhaust pipe. So all of that's also probably burning off in the system too. So I'm sure once it sits and runs for a little while, it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, I know it's white smoke, which is fine, because white smoke is generally coolant, right? But there's no coolant in it, so I know it's not burning coolant. So I'm sure it's a lot of the Marvel Mystery Oil, whatever else is just kind of in that combustion area right now, just from sitting and working on it and freeing things up. And like I said, probably some mouse urine and God knows what else. So I'm hoping that once it's run long enough, again, I only ran it for 18 seconds or so. So however long that video is that I sent to the Discord, I think it's 18 seconds. That's how long it ran. That's how long it ran for. So not a big deal. And maybe I'll start it up again under the cover of night so the neighbors don't see it happen. But yeah, so it's encouraging. It's very encouraging. Like this is the kind of win you need sometimes, right? I watch all these shows on YouTube or on the Motor Trend Network where they go to a junkyard and they pick up this random car and throw some gas in it and a battery in it and they drive it home. And it's like, how? That never works. So it's good to actually have one kind of work out that way. It doesn't need too much, hopefully. So I'm super excited. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a pretty big weekend. So we'll see what happens. So
nice.
Yeah, exciting stuff. And I know the brakes work because I rolled it onto the trailer and the brakes work just fine. So that's one positive.
He told you they work just fine.
Yep. So that's the e-brake doesn't work. I'm sure I'll have to go through it and do ball joints and tie rods and different bushings and whatnot. It's the same. It's all the same parts in the front end as my old Raider was. So it's not my first time doing this. So it shouldn't be too difficult. But yeah, I think that it's not going to be long. That'll be my daily. So the only thing I'm a little concerned about is the port installed air conditioning. A lot of the solenoids for it are vacuum controlled, and when you switch to a Weber carburetor, you lose almost all of your weird auxiliary vacuum lines. So I may have to do some figuring on that, but I'm not too concerned about that right now because it's fall going into winter, so I got some time to figure it out.
Yeah, there should be some like vacuum ports in the intake or something, right?
There's some vacuum ports I got to figure out. I'll have to figure out what's what. It's funny. Harbor Freight sells those like little plastic containers full of assorted things. Like you can get one with like connectors and one with like, I don't know, heat shrink and one with different cotter pins.
Yeah.
I could have sworn they sold one with vacuum caps there. So I went in there to buy one of those assorted vacuum cap kits. And the two people I talked to both directed me to shop vacs when I said I wanted vacuum caps. So I determined they did not sell vacuum cap kits there. But I just bought some on Amazon.
I was going to say, I've seen them somewhere, and I know I have some. You can buy silicone ones now, which are nice because they last a lot longer than the rubber ones. They'll dry out,
Yeah, I just
fall
bought
apart.
some rubber ones just to have them and figure it out.
Yeah.
And once I have it all figured out, maybe I can switch
And
everything to silicone because I probably will change all the vacuum lines to silicone like I did on the Cressida.
and you can buy, I think Vibrant sells a sort of vacuum line manifold. It's like 3 or 4 inches long, and so you only have
So
like
you find
one
a good
vacuum
source of
port.
vacuum, and then you can plug a few
Yeah,
into
and
it.
then you can distribute it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's for like custom builds, that sort of stuff. I've seen that.
Well, I mean,
before.
that's the kind of thing that I definitely will need for this air conditioning setup because it does have some vacuum solenoids in it. I'm not sure what's what. I'm sure there was something that had to do with, some kind of an idle thing, and who knows. But none of that's going to work because obviously it's going to have a Weber carburetor on it. So I'll just have to find a happy medium for idle that works with air conditioning on and off, which is fine.
Yeah.
I want it to have air conditioning because I want it to be basically it'll probably be when I'm not driving my work car, it'll be my daily. So that's the hope.
Cool.
Oh, also, before I get too far off topic and talk about other things, also big shouts to Josh because he went in his attic and he was like, "Hey, do you have a center console?" And I was like, "Nope, my truck doesn't have one." He goes, "Oh, cool." And he goes upstairs and he comes down with the center console, which replaces. So in the bottom of the dash, it has 2 HVAC vents, very similar to my blue Colt and the yellow Colt. It replaces that section and it gives you a storage cubby, the 2 HVAC vents in the same place. And then below that, there's 2 factory gauges. There's like a square gauge pods. They're like, I don't know, maybe 3 inches or so. One of which is a voltmeter and one of which is oil pressure. And then that piece connects to a surround that goes around your shifter for both the transmission and for the transfer case. So they're the wrong color, but I can get some tan paint and make it look like the rest of the interior of the truck. So he also gave me that setup, and my truck is cut where the radio goes for an aftermarket radio, and he gave me a trim piece, like the dash trim, that's uncut with the factory dual stick, radio holes in it, so I can put a factory style radio back in it and then do what I have in the other cars with a hidden, Bluetooth audio somewhere else, so make it look all factory. So that super stoked on that. So definitely going to have to figure that all out. Supposedly the wiring for those gauges is in the truck, and you should plug them in, and the voltmeter should just work. And then for the oil pressure thing, I'll have to figure out if I need to add a sensor somewhere. I'm sure I will. So, well, I might not even have to because it's probably a sensor for the light. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Might be a different style sensor that goes in the same hole. We'll find out. So, a little bit of research, but I'm not that far yet. But I have the parts for when I am.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, it can't be that difficult. It's a very simple truck, and that's part of one of the reasons I was into finding one of these because it's, it's no more complicated than my Colt. It's very simple, especially with the Weber carburetor on it. It's going to just be, everything's pretty plug and play. So, pretty excited.
Nice.
It was a big week for that truck, that's for sure.
Cool. I don't have any project car updates. I haven't done anything. I'm waiting for the head to come back. They said about 2 weeks. It's been about 2 weeks. So
okay.
Hopefully they'll call me tomorrow,
Soon.
maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, and then I'm gonna swap out. I'll bring up the block when I pick up the head. So that's
Excellent.
what I'm waiting for on that. Not much else. I haven't done anything with real cars. I've got some Scale Autocast updates.
Sure, hit me up. What'd you build?
I've been
Or
working on
building?
that. I've been working that Orlando Hunter kit. I think I talked about merging it with a Tamiya Montero kit to make a 1/24th scale rock crawler or crawler kit, just a very scale one. I've got the whole chassis assembled.
I've noticed that there's a divide now on the RC world where there's rock crawlers and there are trail trucks.
Yes. Yep.
So I
So
think this would be a trail truck because it's not a true rock crawler.
yeah, it'd be more of a trail truck. You're right.
Yep.
Because that's an interesting activity, and there are people that do it here in New England. They'll go out and on a hiking trail, they'll just all walk and drive their trucks alongside them
Yeah,
as they
it sounds
hike.
super nerdy, and it is super nerdy, but also
It's
totally
exercise.
cool. Yeah,
Like
sure.
if it gets you outside and you're exercising and occupied, why not? And it's so hard to off road around here because there isn't a lot of legal trails to do it.
Sure.
It can't be illegal to use a nearly silent small electric car that walks alongside you.
I think it's also cool from the scale aspect of things because people like get real into it with like photography and video of it, and
Yeah.
every now and then you're scrolling through Instagram and you'll get tricked by one of these RC trucks. Do you think it's a real truck? So I think it's a cool little activity. And listen, we've never shied away from admitting to our nerdy automotive hobbies, and I'm totally fine with it. So
it's merging my model car building and the RC stuff, and hopefully gets me more back into model car building. We are getting into winter. I've got some stuff lined up here. I've still got that Celica body sitting there. Now that I did the decals in the wild one, and I know how to do it with the wet soapy water method for Lexan bodies, I'm gonna tackle that soon and get that all set up as the shelf body. So I'm just just saving that because that's like a good wintertime can't go outside thing.
yeah.
So
Stuck inside in a snowy day.
yeah, because the body came pre-painted from Tamiya in the kit, so I don't even have to paint it. But anyway, yeah, I've been working on that Orlando Hunter kit. I think you talked about yours. That you're right. The pieces are small and
Very small.
I don't have the magnifying glasses. I have a magnifying glass thing that I look through.
Okay.
I bought myself a nice. They're actually on Amazon. They're only like $12. A nice set of Vessel. So they make the JIS screwdrivers. They make a precision screwdriver or driver set. So it's got a bunch of little hexes that you can use and a small screwdriver. It's perfect for this kit.
Awesome.
So, and it's only $12. It's like cheaper than all the like Chinese ones that are on Amazon. No name brand. So
I have a Chinese name brand one that I think cost a Chinese no name brand one that probably cost me like $15. So
yeah. And I'm looking at the kit. I get it all together. It's a roller. It runs. I borrowed the battery out of the SCX24. It's the same battery. Will work in it. I'll have to get another battery for this one. But the trick is going to be the wheelbase is right. The width is right for like with the kit wheels and tires in there. It looks like a stock like Montero of that generation, like with the little tires that they came with.
Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't look like the SR wide body truck, which is what this kit is with the flares. And like even the kit tires, the model kit tires are bigger than the tires that came on this thing. So I think I can get bigger tires for this.
Yeah, tiny 4x4 has bigger tires.
Yeah.
But that's because technically that chassis is a 1/32 scale. So
But it's very close.
It's 1/32 scale for a long wheelbase Toyota Tundra that it comes with. So the wheelbase for a much shorter Montero is pretty close between 1/32 and 1/24 that way. That's how it works out because the kit that I have is a second gen Montero in 1/32 scale, and the wheelbase is significantly shorter than a 1/24 scale one would be. So like significantly shorter. Like I was trying to use it to put under that Mighty Max kit that I have, and the rear wheels are like right behind the cab, like almost touching the cab. So it wouldn't work at all.
I took pictures of the measurements. Did I send them to you? The wheelbase and the width?
You did.
All right.
Yep.
So
I wanted to use that same chassis because it has IFS in the front, so it would be prototypically correct for like your Montero and for the Mighty Max kit. The only concern I have is that it's 10 millimeters wider or 11 millimeters wider than the kit that I have, which would be impossible to replicate a completely stock truck because the wheels would be like at the fender line plus a little.
So that kit's really narrow.
It's very narrow. Yep. So
yeah,
still might try to make it work, but we'll see what happens. I made it too. Sorry.
I was just gonna say this kit is interesting because, like, the rear diff, the pumpkin is really small. It looks really scale. The front suspension looks fairly scale with the IFS. It was a little weird to fit the brushless motor in there. I had to fudge it a little bit to make it fit.
Well, the weird thing with the brushless motor is that the motor doesn't spin internally. The external can spins.
Yeah. I never had a brushless motor before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just barely fits.
They're not all like that either. Only it seems to be that the crawler ones are.
Yeah.
Like the ones that are in faster on-road cars don't do that.
Yeah, it's weird, but the definitely the low speed control is very, very good. Like, you just barely touch the throttle with the transmitter.
That's also a feature of the whatever speed controller you have in there too, which is related to that because it's all one unit, right?
Yeah, it's all
one company.
It's matched. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also know that motor and speed controller probably cost as much as the kit, if not more. So
it was more than kit.
It's a little bit of a hard nut to crack when you're trying to do that. But it's the problem with the one that I have without that is that it's not crawling speed, so its driving speed is so slow that it's like, unless you're using it to go over obstacles, you'll never drive it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna mount this body. I'm gonna hide the electronics. I haven't even looked up. We found videos of people driving them with model car bodies on them, but it's a lot of stuff that's in like Southeast Asia because this stuff's really popular in like the Philippines and like Taiwan and that area. So I don't know if I'll even be able to find like English instructions on how people have done this. So I might have to just
a lot of them use magnets.
Yes, but like the body is slightly wider than the chassis, so I might have to add some structure with like styrene, like sticks underneath, to sort of hold the interior in and like between the body, and then maybe add magnets to the chassis plate and to the other part. So it's not like something I plan on doing like fast. This is just going to be like a slow burn of a build. I'll just kind of play with it.
I have to catch up, so I'm glad that you're not doing it too fast.
It could be, it's like I am really interested in learning more about 3D printing. It could be something where there's side panels on the chassis that the Tundra body attaches to that are close, but it's like, well, there's mounts there. If I took measurements of them, there are free CAD programs that I could make pieces maybe that would fit, and then 3D print them and see if they fit, and then you can adjust as stuff doesn't fit or fits. There are ways to do it, so this is more of like a learning experience sort of challenge to do this. We'll see. As far as the Axial, the SCX-24, I got a Toyota pickup truck body for it, and I don't know what year the pickup truck body is supposed to be. It's like the
93, 94.
Really? I think it looks like the one from Back to the Future. Like it's like an 85.
Oh, I thought it was the one right after that.
No, it's an early truck-ish.
It's tough
like
to
a
tell.
first
It's
gen.
a Lexan body, so it's a little less obvious.
Yeah. But I did the method where I painted the inside with Tamiya Lexan paint, which is the Tamiya PS paint. It's pulled the window masks, the Proline window masks, which was interesting. They also didn't fit tight for the entire windows. Like they're a little bit smaller than what they should be. It was funny when I'm doing this. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember now. Proline has always been like a met. Like the bodies are okay. They're not like to my quality. They're not even like
Yeah, they're
close.
decent.
Yeah.
They're also
So
way cheaper than a Maya body was.
they
so.
are. So yeah, I painted it with like a copper color, and then I tried to use the Tamiya smoke paint on the inside. It worked all right. I remember the Pactra. Pactra was the company, right, that made the Lexan paint.
It may have been Pactra, and then it was Testers, and then it was.
I feel like that paint was a little bit easier to work with. It dried faster. The
It
Tamiya
dried
stuff,
super fast.
yeah, the Tamiya stuff dries a little bit slower, and it's thin like Tamiya paint for model cars. So be aware, and it's hot, chemically hot, so it will react
Okay.
with each other as stuff is not dried. So it's not the perfect paint job, but I'm learning, and I was only trying to do it so it would weather anyway. So the outside, it comes with the protective film on it. So you peel that off, and you would normally be left with a perfectly beautiful, shiny Lexan body with a color coat on the inside. That's typically how you do it. But what people do for these trail trucks is they are painting the outside of the Lexan, and it weathers through, so that eventually it shows up with
So you
like
paint
that
the
dark.
inside in like a rust color,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
the outside in whatever color you want it to be.
So I had some leftover white Lexan paint that I used on the wild one, and I sprayed the outside of it with Lexan paint. And apparently, if you want, they're like most of the YouTube videos are like once you coat the outside with some Lexan paint, you could use Tamiya regular paint on top of that. It was be okay, but
Okay.
there wasn't a color that I wanted. Strangely, all the colors don't cross over all the time. Some of them do,
No.
some of them don't. It's this cool like mustard yellow color that they have in Lexan paint, but not in regular Tamiya paint. So I sprayed it over the white, and then used some, once it was all dried, I used some 1000 grit, the Tamiya sanding sponge, and kind of sanded through some spots and gave it some wear spots, like it's sun damaged and paint worn on the high spots of the body.
So it's regular Tamiya paint or it's PS paint?
That's PS paint. I just
Okay.
used it because it's actually very shiny. It's not flat. It's weird.
Well, it's the same. That's the same mustard color probably that I bought for the Bronco body that I have. So
Yeah. So it looks pretty cool. I'm gonna have to do like around the windows with black. I had a Panaline pen, but it dried out. I'll have to get a new one. So it's basically got to do some detail
I
to
don't think
it.
you have a Hobby Lobby near you, but they sell. There's one in New Hampshire, not too far from you. But they sell the what do you call them? Gundam pens.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I've been using those a lot, and they're really good.
I can get those at the local hobby shop, which I'd rather do.
Okay,
otherwise.
good. No, if the local hobby shop has the Gundam ones, perfect. Get them there.
If I recall correctly, the place in Wakefield that does a lot of because people use them for Warhammer, I think too.
Okay,
along with
yep,
building
probably.
Gundams. So yeah,
I didn't know there was
had
a
a lot
place
of
in
that stuff.
Wakefield, so that's cool.
It's it was the place that was in Medford, Hobby Bunker, moved to Wakefield.
Yes. Oh, okay. I thought they were
Mhm.
closed up for good. I didn't know they reopened
Nope,
somewhere.
they moved.
That's way
But
more
anyway.
convenient too to get to Wakefield than going to Medford. So
Yeah.
or Malden, wherever it was.
So yeah, I got to do some more detailing to that. I actually ordered magnet mounts to set up that body for magnet mounts because that's very easy. They already have the provisions where you can just actually order them Etsy. Somebody 3D printed them. You just swap out the body posts in the front, and there's spots in the back that you can add these magnets. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's let's see, I did that. I'm looking around here. What else I get? That's pretty much, I think, all that I did with scale cars. Just kind of doing different stuff here and there. Oh, you know what I ended up doing? Because I'm I don't know, having a midlife crisis, maybe? I don't know.
You bought a Corvette? Wow.
No, I bought another front-wheel drive Tamiya chassis. That
Oh,
was more
nice.
stock
I didn't even know that.
and had more stock pieces and some of the stuff that isn't broken on the other one I bought. Because I was like, oh, I could 3D print. It's kind of annoying. It's probably cost me more money to figure out how to 3D print stuff than to just buy another chassis and take parts off it for parts and just make one car out of two.
Yep, absolutely.
And because really, what I'm trying to do is make the dream front-wheel drive chassis that I always wanted with all the. I'm trying to get all the hop ups I had and then all the ones that I never had before. So, like, I got the carbon chassis on the other one. I actually found another. I bought a used TO2 four-wheel drive chassis off of eBay as well because it had a bunch of the GPM aluminum suspension arms that I had on my car. So, and those are all the same. They swap over.
Front wheel drive and all.
Well, they're TO2. Yeah, the arms are the same for TO2. It was the middle of the chassis that was different, and the front.
I think that the front wheel drive was also a TAO2, right? It was TAO2.
It's
FF.
a TO2 FF.
Yeah,
but the front, it's weird, right? They like. I think it also had something to do with like being the manta ray name because the bathtub looked like a manta ray. And that's why they call it that.
The manta ray was the TAO2 chassis off-road car, if I remember correctly. It was like a buggy.
Yeah, but maybe I don't know. When you look at the bathtub on the FF01, it looks like a manta ray. I guess I don't know. It's got like a swept design. It's weird.
Yep.
But the TO2 is basically like the suspension was the same and some of the bulkheads were the same, but like the center part was different. It was a mid motor with a shaft drive. So just a bunch of spare parts, which will be useful. So
no, the Manta Ray was a DF01 chassis. So, man, it's funny. I'm just having this realization as I'm sitting here. It's the same as the TAO2 chassis. I'm just having this situation as I'm sitting here that I get angry at people who use nomenclature for car chassis like 991.2. And here I am going like even deeper on a way more nerdy subject. Like, oh, it's a TAO2 FF versus a DF01. Like, so I should stop before I hate myself.
And what else I did was I ordered. They're very inexpensive, so I just ordered them. Was because I'm missing them. Was the Tamiya mesh, the gray mesh wheels? They still make them. What would have come on the Volvo kit I had?
Okay,
and I ordered just a basic set of Tamiya slicks to go on them, so I can because I still have the 850 body. I didn't get rid of the body, so I can put that on the shelf. Yeah, that's cool. We can compare it. The decal job I did when I was 11 or 12 versus the decal job I will do on the Celica as a 4-year-old man. So
hopefully better.
Hopefully it's better.
Yeah. I mean, you have not been doing it for 30 years in between and like having experience, so you haven't done it since then. So maybe
I remember doing them without using water or anything, and like one side is like decent, one side has like a wrinkle in it, but like it's cool because it's just nostalgic for me now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the whole reason we got back into this stuff is because it's just, you use the word midlife crisis, but it's not wrong. It's just that's what nostalgia is, right? You're just trying to hold on to your youth.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, that's what I've done on Scale Project Cars. We had the NASCAR Cup Series Championship was last weekend in Phoenix, and you were busy working on the truck, so you didn't go.
I almost went. I looked up tickets the night before, and you could buy tickets like a single ticket for like $59. And I was like, oh, I should go. But I was like, no, I really want to hold myself accountable to getting this truck done. I set myself a false goal of getting the truck done in time for the final Saturday of the month, which is Adventure Machines at 4 till 4. And I was like, my goal is to get the truck running and driving by then. So I need to have, like, the way my brain works, I need to have a target date for something, even if it means nothing, to get something done. or else I'll just
That's
sit forever.
That's fine.
So this is my
Whatever
my new
works.
way of keeping myself like accountable for things, right? So if you remember, I tried it way back when I first got that blue Toyota. I was like, I'll have it for this many months, and if it doesn't run, I'll get rid of it. And I didn't hold myself to it, and everything got ruined. So this is my new way of doing things, and my target goal for that truck was I want to have it running for the last Saturday of the month, which is, like I said, vintage off-road vehicles at 4 till 4. It's not a huge goal. It's just like just not a big off-road trip. Just bring it to this one coffee shop, and that will be my goal.
That's fair.
So, yeah. Even if I don't make that goal, at least by setting that goal, I will be further along in the progress than I would be otherwise. So I use that reasoning in my head to not go to NASCAR this weekend. Also, because I was like, yeah, it's $59, but then I'm going to spend so much money on food and drinks and souvenirs, and I'd better save that money and put it into the truck. So
I don't think you missed much. I mean, other than it being in your backyard and being able to go, but
it is good to go. I do enjoy going. I also was sort of invited by somebody else to go. And then when I saw him again after the race, he's like, "Yeah, you should come." And I was like, "Yeah, we didn't really talk about it." And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man, I wish as a guy I know like professionally, so I don't have his personal phone numbers." And he's like, "Yeah, I wish I had your personal phone number. I would have called you and been like, we definitely have a ticket. Come." And maybe I would have then, but nonetheless, I didn't go. So I did watch it after it was over. I managed to not get any spoilers though, so that was good. But I recorded it because I wanted to watch it after working on the truck, and I stuck to my goal. So I'm proud of myself for that this weekend.
Well, yeah, I watched it live. It was okay. I mean, the racing was good. They were moving around. They're doing some passing. Tires had some pretty good fall off. It wasn't like a super boring race, but it wasn't like, I don't know, guys were driving fairly aggressive, but the problem is during the last race, everybody that's not in the championship does sort of back off from them and give them a little bit of space.
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One,
you don't want to be the guy that ruins.
You don't want to be the guy that takes out one of the 4 championship contenders.
Yeah.
That would be terrible, especially if it's the same manufacturer or a teammate or stuff. That would be the worst thing you could do. So they're not going to race them super aggressively, which is why in general you see one of the top 4 win the final race, because they're given a little bit more of a berth than they normally would be. So that's okay though.
It at least did come down to, Joey Logano did have to win the race, because if he didn't, Ryan Blaney was going to win the championship.
Well,
he was
sure.
running right behind him. So It wasn't like one guy had a good day and everybody else's cars were bad. It was at least like the top 4 were fairly close. Unfortunately,
even Reddick, who we were pulling for the whole time, like at any other race, you would have said he had a good day.
Yeah.
So
he didn't have a great day as in winning the championship, but yeah, he had a top 10 finish. So,
and he was running between 6 and 10 all day. So he had a good day, but it wasn't a good day.
Yeah. So the controversy is that Joey Logano won, I guess.
Well, the controversy is he won, and he was an alternate to get into the playoffs, or to get into that round of the playoffs.
Basically, I mean, almost like, would that be similar to a wild card? Is kind of the way he got in?
This is the conversation I've had with a few people. Some people who are mad about the playoff format. They say, well, he was like 12th in points or 14th in points, and he won the championship. And I was like, yeah, that's how it works in every championship. You finish second in points doesn't mean you win the championship. Like, you can be, like you said, the wild card. You can be a provisional team in some sports, and if you make it in, you made it in on merit, and then you have a better part of your season. Like you were a 500 ball club until the playoffs, and then you turned it on in time for the playoffs, and you won the World Series, or you won the Super Bowl, or whatever it is. It's not the first and second seed every time. If the first and second seed were there and nobody else was, then it'd be boring.
It feels like it's actually kind of unusual. Like last year, the Celtics had an extremely good year the entire year, right?
Yep.
Right. That feels unusual to have an insane year. Like that would have been unusual for them to not win the championship, I guess.
Sure.
But
it is unusual.
It's not
think back to the Patriots when they had an undefeated season and lost the Super Bowl.
Exactly. The last game they lost.
Yeah. Come on.
So, but it's normally like you don't have a insanely good season. You have like a good enough season that you get in the playoffs. That's all it takes.
Yeah,
and then
you turn it on where it counts.
Yeah. So I have no problem with him winning. My problem was with I don't think the 24, we talked about it a little bit, but then on looking into it some more, I don't think the 24 should have even been there as a
Absolutely
Final
not.
Four car.
Oh, Christopher Bell should have been.
Yeah, I guess. Because he didn't. I don't think there was race. I don't think they ruled there was race manipulation on Toyota's part. I think they just said that was a safety violation. But the fact that 3 Chevys, or at least 2 of them, or Chevy teams colluded to manipulate the end of a race, all 3 of those drivers should have been excluded from this last race.
Yep, because the 2 drivers that were doing the manipulation did get penalized, but the driver that they were manipulating the race for did not get penalized, and that I think is bunk. And honestly, if they didn't allow Christopher Bell to come in, which is okay, fine, let's
give it to the next person.
Let's not give it to Christopher Bell. The next person would have been Kyle Larson, which would have been like frustrating, but also, hey, fair's fair. Like, I don't like the guy. I don't want him to win, but I wouldn't have been disappointed from a rules standpoint if he was the car that got put in there.
I think that's the other issue that people were upset is that Kyle Larson had 6 wins this season, and they're like, how is he not in the Final Four? And it's like, that's what we're talking about. It doesn't matter how good your regular season is. It's how you do when it comes time to the playoffs.
Undefeated all year, lose the championship. That's just...
And also, Kyle Larson won 6 races, did not win the points championship for regular season. That was Tyler Reddick.
Nope. Yep.
So who had a better finishing percentage? Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle Larson had a lot of DNFs this year.
So that also does not, Tyler Reddick won the regular season championship. That also does not guarantee that you win the Final Four.
Nope.
So, that's what's. I've heard some people floating. They're like, oh, they should change it so that like you cannot win to advance. It always has to be points.
There's okay with that.
Fast pass.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, maybe that would work better if it's always points.
I don't hate that.
And finishing.
Listen, there's no perfect solution to anything, and if things didn't change and develop, then everything would be stagnant, right? So anybody who is like, oh, it should go back to the way it used to be, like, sure, you're grumpy that you don't like change, and I understand that because sometimes I don't like change, but the sport needs to grow. And part of what brought us back into the sport is this kind of growth the sport had, because the sport was stagnant for a lot of years.
But we're 20 years into the playoff system, I think, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it predates us rewatching again for sure. So
I remember when I heard it coming out, they called it the chase. I was like, that sounds dumb. Yep. But I'd already been on NASCAR for a while, so I didn't care.
Right.
But now I'm back into it. I was like, okay.
Dumb.
But once I know how it works, I'm like, all right, that makes sense. Because what they're trying to do, and Logano explained this after the race when they were interviewing him, it was extremely boring when a guy wrapped up the championship with 3 races to go.
Yeah. Who cares about the rest of the season?
Yeah. Why do you want to watch the last 3 races?
Yep.
That's the point. And that's not good for the people that own the tracks. That's not good for the fans that want to go to the races.
Yeah.
And
I say that same thing all the time. I've said it all the time. Like, Like go back to the Celtics last year. If the Celtics won the championship with 3 rounds left, what? Like, no, that's not how it works. You need to play till the finals, the final event. Like, you need the Super Bowl. You need this big final thing. Like,
and
for all kinds of reasons.
Because when did Reddick win the regular season? That was like 5 or 8 races to go.
It would have been, yeah.
Or I think it's at the last. I think you're crowned at the last
round of 8
regular season, maybe.
What's the regular? Oh yeah, right, before the playoffs start. So yeah,
yeah.
It would have
so
been
like
the full 16.
So yeah, what if you're like, oh yeah, those last 2 months of racing doesn't mean anything?
Yeah,
it'd be so boring. What are we watching it for?
Yeah.
So,
and it did happen. So
it used to happen back in the day, all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why it looks so weird when you see like, Richard Petty has 7 championships. Because it's I don't want to say it was easier. It was just you just achieved it in a different way. Yeah.
Different format. You
so
could win the first 8 races of the year back then, and then you've won the championship without participating anymore.
Yeah, basically.
So.
But now you've got, I believe Logano has won all his championships under the playoff format. So to have 3 under this format is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So, you can't. I know people don't love him. I don't know why. They tried to make him a heel at some point, I think in the early 2000s or when he was younger, because he's only like 35.
I have no anti-Logano feelings.
He's got this goofy, childlike nature to him, and I don't know why. Like, he doesn't seem like a mean guy.
No, not at all.
Maybe he whines a little bit, but not as much as Blaney. Blaney seems like he's a real whiner. Yep. But, and he'll race you hard, but I don't think he'll wreck you. And, he would have had a lot better finishing if Dylan hadn't put him in the wall at Richmond.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. Dylan is the true heel now, so
yeah, he really.
Anyway,
is.
yeah, no. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the pace car crash.
Oh yeah,
the most bizarre thing that's happened in a NASCAR race in a long time.
It was the end of the first stage, right? It was like, no, it wasn't the end of the first stage. It was they were like
the third
what?
Stage?
They were like
one of the stages.
No, they were like 4 laps into the first stage, and Ty Gibbs like just went into the wall. No cheer here for that.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, like, all right, whatever, man. And then it was like the pace car like forgot that they gave the 1 to go, and it just was like, oh, there's my exit. It was a very Phoenix exit.
That's what it reminded me of. It was like somebody who was like in the carpool lane and was like, oh crap, there's my exit, and just yanked the steering wheel the other direction and went across the Gore lane sideways.
Yeah,
he had zero chance. He didn't even turn the steering wheel until he was already past the first barrel.
He was on the 202 out there.
He just drove into the side of the barrel. So, 202 is fine. He was on the 17.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a mess. So I don't know what he was even thinking. Like,
that was wild.
And we always say it here. Anytime I see somebody do it in the highway here, Naomi and I are always like, man, it's a grid system. Just take the next exit. You're only 1 mile down the road and just turn around and come back up. Like the surface streets 1 mile. Like, it's an oval track. Just do 1 more lap. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't think the guys in the front would have been like, what's going on? And
they wouldn't have like accelerated
and
run over. Yeah.
No. It was like Chase Elliott and so like they're professionals. Just go.
Yeah. In fact, they didn't go when he did that because they knew that he didn't go, right? So whatever. It was very
weird.
odd. And Chase Elliott posted that meme video about it. That was pretty good too. So at first it looked like Chase Elliott hit him.
It did. They were like, did the 9 get in the back of him? But no. Just he just looped it. Like, guy's never gonna live that one down.
Nope. He's probably never gonna drive a pace car again either.
Yeah, so the only other thing about that is Penske won again.
Sure.
They won a bunch of championships this year. I think they won like IMSA, GTP. Joseph Newgarden, Penske driver, won the Indy 500 we were at. So
it's funny. The following day at work, so obviously I work in the car insurance field, and we have the big Penske dealership network out here, and they have one of the big body shops in town. The very next day, they announced changes in all their rates. All their rates went up.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we had like a little group chat going at work, and I was like, man, they must have had to bump their rates up to pay for all the champagne they drank celebrating last night. Like, that's weird. It's timing. Timing is funny here. Like, what's happening? They made millions of dollars last night winning the NASCAR championship, and now they want another $30 to do an alignment. I don't like this.
Yeah. But huge dynasty team. It's like,
oh yeah. I mean, listen, Roger Penske, love him or hate him, he is huge for the promotion of American motorsports. So what it is.
Penske Entertainment Group apparently just bought the Long Beach Grand Prix, so that's good. That's going to stay around.
Yep.
Because he owns Indianapolis. So now he bought the
Daytona,
Long Beach Grand Prix. So
Daytona too, right?
No, Daytona is the France family.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the giant Penske ads when you walk up the front stairs at Daytona.
That is just, I think, just for history. Because
he won there so many times. Well, anyway, you should come up to Phoenix next year for the playoffs, for the final race. Maybe next year might be the
spring race
one here.
Maybe.
No, I'm thinking the playoff race only because I think it might be the last one here.
Yeah.
It's moving to Vegas, I think.
Yeah, they're talking about changing it up. Well, that's the other thing. So they're talking about this race manipulation. I didn't even think of it. The announcers were talking about it, that, sports betting is a thing in NASCAR, for better or worse. That's a real problem if you're manipulating the races, if you've got people betting on stuff. So they really got to get that under control. But
anyway.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
All right, cool.
That's it.
All right. If you want to hang out in the Discord, send us a message. We'll get you a link. Either one of us can do it. If you're interested in playing EA WRC, I set up a beer league for us. We're kind of in the holiday time. It's like super chill. I think it's like 4 stages per rally. The events last a week. And I forget which cars I picked, but I couldn't figure out how to change the cars. I felt like a real dummy. So it was just whatever the cars are in there. They're like NR4s or something. It's just some rally car, but we're in there, in the Discord. That's how you can get to it. And you can follow the podcast, Out of Topic, on Facebook, Out of Topic on Instagram, Out of Topic on Threads. I'm Racing on Threads. And Brad, where can you find you?
I'm TSISS350 on Instagram and Threads, and Scale Autocast is where you can find all our tiny toys, tiny cars.
That's right. All right. And as always, keep cars analog and aim for the roses.